Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Horiyot daf Tes. We are going to begin on Chesed Beis, the bottom Mishnah. Says the Masnisa, Ein chayavin al shmias kol vel bitis v'sayim vel tumas mikdash v'kedasha. So we've been learning in the previous parak that when it comes to a beis din who gives an erroneous psak, so the din is that there's a chiyuv of a par helam davar shel tzibor. Now, it has to be in a situation where the psak is a situation or a mitzvah in which b'mezid would be kares and b'shogeg is a chiyuv chatas. However, there has to be a chatas kavua. Now, when it comes to, as we saw previously, for example, when it comes to tumas mikdash v'kedashav, which is a carbon oil v'yorid, depending on one's financial status. But we also mentioned other things here too. The Mishnah mentions, for example, when it comes to shmias koil, which is referring to a false oath, that referring to a person that doesn't know testimony, but he really did, or bito isvasayim, again, is when a person also gives another false oath, rahal lahitiv. So it's looking Rashi, the whole hani having bicarbon oil v'yarid. These three things are all the same in what's carbon oil v'yarid. As you saw previously, that tzivri and mevin chatas el b'kavua. The only time you have to bring the carbon is dafka when it comes to a carbon kavua, but not by oil v'yarid, as we saw because of the psukim, as we just saw in yesterday's daf, because there's no, the similarity in the pasuk of oil v'yarid does not match that of the other psukim. Okay. And then we talk about Hanasi. Now, Hanasi generally is translated as like a prince, but here it's referred to the king. Nasi kiyoitz behen, divrei Rabbi Yossi Galili. We say that the Nasi has the same dinim, that there's no chiyuv for the king if he violates these things to have to bring the carbon. Says Rashi, de'enu b'carbon olav yared. He doesn't bring for these things. Okay. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Kiva Omer Hanasi Chay B'Kul. No, in fact, the king is obligated chutz mishmias hakoil, with the exclusion of shmias hakoil, which is the first thing we mentioned about giving a false oath, saying that you don't know something you really did. Shemelchu don v'donanoiso will made will meidanoiso, which we saw in Masechtas Sanhedrin, that when it comes to a king, he's not a judge, he cannot judge. He can't be judged, and he also can't be he can't give testimony, and he also can't have someone that testifies against him. So therefore, because of all these different things, he won't fall into the category of shmias koil. Says Rashi, she'in shmias koil cholav shahamelach lo dan noisa lo meid lo meid noisai. So because of that, it's not shaykh for him to have that mitzvah. Says the Gemara. So Omulu, my time to Rabbi Yossi Galili. So why does Rabbi Yossi Galili say that he's chayiv in all of these things? Apparently, even when it comes to shmias koil. So Omer Kra, because the pasuk says, and this is a pasuk that we said before regarding an oil of yared. It says v'haya ki yesham l'achas me'ela. So if a person violates one of these things, there's vada asher chata leha. Again, this is referring to the carbon oil of yared. So koshin is chayiv ba'achas mischay b'kulan. Shem mischay ba'achas and mischay b'kulan. So if you're chayiv in one of these types of situations, bring an oil of yared, anytime an oil of yared is brought, you're mechuyev. And therefore, that includes, of course, a king, because he's mechuyev in some oil of yaretz, he's mechuyev in all of them. So, why don't we say that he's only chayiv in one of them, even if he's not chayiv in all of them? In other words, how do we know that this pasuk of ki yesham is coming to tell you that if you were chayiv one, you're chayiv all of them? Maybe not case. That's not the case. And Rashi says, "Panasi nami." Shafal b'sheinu chay b'shmias koil, he chay b'bito isvasayim v'tumas mikdash v'kedasha. Right, just that's maybe all it's coming to tell you is that there is no chiyuv, similar to what the sheet of Rabbi Kiva when it comes to shmias koil. So el tam Rabbi Yossi mahachad asanya, because we learn the following. Rabbi Yomi Omer Nemar. On one hand, it says, as we continue to test about Aleph, lo siga yadai. So the entirety of this pasuk is in Sefer Vayikra Perek Hey. And it says, "V'imo siga yadai deiseh." If a person is not literally able to reach a sheep, v'hevies hashamo asher chata shtei tayrim. This is again talking about a chiyuv in the event that you cannot afford an animal, so then you can bring birds, and doves, turtle doves. One is a chatas, one is an oil. So that pasuk is clearly talking about an oil here. It says Rashi, Damashma mishabal yad liyidei anias yashirus. Someone who is shaykh to become rich or poor. Depamim ani pamim masher. You can become rich and you can become poor. Almost that's basically the fate of any human being. And I'm focusing on the word any. Almost any. Why? Who dishim b'karban olav yard? Only that individual who's lo siga yadai. Yatsa Mashiach v'nasidu oil mashirim heim. If we're dealing with a melech, a king cannot become poor, and also a Mashiach, the Kohen Gadol, cannot be poor. It's impossible. Why not? Why can't they be poor? Why can't a king be poor? So it says that he did one of these mitzvahs. This is again Asher Nasi Echata, the leader, the king. He does one of these mitzvahs, which he violated one of them, which he shouldn't have done, and he did it. B'shogeg Tomishin al Gabav El Hashem Lokav. So when it talks about a Nasi, it's only someone who only has God above him because he's so powerful. Mashiach Tersev Kohen Gadol Me'echav Shu Gadol Me'echav B'noi B'koyach B'chacham V'Oisher. He has all the great trimmings of an individual. He is greater than all his brothers in beauty, strength, wisdom, and wealth. Which means that we are not allowed to have a king or a Kohen Gadol to be poor, right? So because of that, it's not shaykh to apply this pasuk of Osiga Yadai. And therefore, this is the reason why he says that this pasuk, again, going to Rabbi Yosef Galili, he says, the Nasis Kiyotz Behendi Rabbi Yosef Galili. So, Acherim Oimrim, so Menayin Shim Ein Lo Gadlulu Mishal Echav. How do you know? So let's say the king is poor, the Kohen Gadol is poor. You have to provide for him. Talmud Leimer, the Kohen had Gadol Me'echav. Asher Yusak Al Reisho Gadol Me'echav. You have to elevate him. Okay. So again, Rashi says the Mashmir Mishbal Yodo Nias Veshiris to Pamim Manu Pamim Asher. Who do Yishma B'Karman Olav? Only he has the din of Karav Yared. Yot Mashiach V'Nasi the Oyel Mashirim Haim. So they don't even fall into the category of a din of Oyel Yared because it's not shaykh for them to be an Oyel Yared because they're always rich. Bamine Ravinim Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. So he asks a kasha. Nasi Shenitztera. When it comes to a Nasi who has saras, according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosef Galili, so it says Rashi the other minasiyasa, if his position was gone, shein roy lios melech kashu matzayra. He could not be a king while he has saras. So it's like he was removed, maybe even, albeit temporarily, from his nasiyas, from his position of power, as the Gemara later on says in the next parak, which is just next daf, it says v'yanaga Hashem as hamelech v'hi mitzayra ad yom moiso. He had saras until his death. The Yosher bebeis ha'chavshis the mashma shenatza chavshim ha'malchusai. It's mashma that when he had saras, he was freed from his duties as king. Mao says Rashi mi'amrinan pater b'karban olav yared kishu nasi. Do we say that he's pater from a carbon olav yared v'achshav kishenitztera? But now that this king had saras, Davim and Siyasal Chayiv, so maybe he is obligated olav yared. Well, Dilma, Madahavi, Kashunasi, what it was, Kawaimer Hoyel Venidche Yidche, Kashunitztera. So since as a Nasi there's no din olav yared, so too also when he has saras, same din, even though he was removed from the position. So that's what the Gemara asks. Nasi Misarasu Mahu, Midchidochi, Mifter Potter, Malay, Dialach O de Gaza. So what does that mean? So Rashi says that to you it should go to the to you or to the treasury, right? So what does that mean? So Rashi says, "Mamai kiboyes lechiyuva." Why would you say chayiv yisui carbon kishminitzra mamamoin shulcha o mamamin degazi didei? Habi Omer Megazi Dide who the boy lasuye. From the treasury he should be taking. Mikavan the Megazi Dide Kaboy Asui Amtul Hochi Potul Gamri Mikamel Yorid. Yatzin Nasi Mashiach Shein Boyin Lidianios. Okay. So that apparently answers this question. Let's look at question 2. Nasi Shinitzra Mahu Manifshet Medino Me'ezatam. So again, the question is there a din olav yored? So we say we answer that he's potter. Kivanda potter mishum deloy boli de'anius, because we know that just like he can never become poor, v'hachinami kishenitztera, so too when he has saras, also he can never become poor, right? So you can still give him money from these locations. TA7. Nasi shnitzra im dinu kenasi le'inyan sa'ir le'inyan carbon olav yored, or dinu kehedik, that he has to bring a kesef or a seira and a carbon olav yored. So he brings a kisu seira like a hedget, and he's put from a carbon olav yored kenasi. So we only did part of it. He's put from a carbon olav yored just like a nasi, because he's not asili de'anius. Okay, so Tanya Rabbi Kiva Omer Mashiach. When it comes to the Kohen Gadol, so he is potter completely. Says Rashi, Mekarbon of Yared. A Kohen Gadol doesn't bring carbon of Yared. Dechsiv Ze carbon Aharon. This is the carbon Uvanov for Aaron and his kids. On the day that he's anointed, they bring a tenth of an ephah. Ve'ein acheres bo lo di aser se'efa oil v'yarid lo bo lo chayvo. Hilkach potter mekulam oil v'yarid. Okay, so let's continue with the Gemara. So Rabbi Kiva says Mashiach potter mekulam. So Rabbi Tam Rabbi Kiva Omer zek carbon arayin uvanov zu ba chayvelo ve'ein acheres ba chayvelo. So this comes as a chayv, but acheres for the Kohen Gadol it does not come to him. Be'ema kima ma'it le rachmana. Midalidalis. Maybe it's just coming to exclude the Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Mashiach, from the lowest level of poverty, which is that you don't even bring birds; you have to only bring a seres ephah, the flour offering, and maybe that's what the pasuk is saying, because it says in a cheres a seres ephah ba loichayva. So that's dali dalis, the lowest level on the chain. My new seres ephah of lanias v'ashiris lumati rachmana. However, when maybe we don't make this exclusion, says Rashi, the al shimias koil bitus sevasayim v'tumas mikdash kadashav l'chayev kisvo seira oy torim b'nei yoina. Maybe hitaka is chayev an oy of a yored. Maybe it's just coming to tell you that it's coming to exclude dali dalis. The chipo of a koyin al chatasa sherchata mi'achas mi'eleh. It says the word mi'achas. So mischaper ba'achas. Mischaper b'kulon. If you're mischaper with one, so it's mischaper with all of them. If you cannot be mischaper with one of them, which is the aser sa'efa, because you're rich, mischaper b'kulon, then you cannot be mischaper with them. So therefore, there's no oil of yard at all, because since it doesn't apply to the dali dali, it shouldn't apply to anything either. It says Rashi, kol mischaper b'achas claiming b'chol achas yachas nefil b'aser sa'efa mischaper b'kulon. The issue of aser, okay. She'ein mischaper b'achas mehen kigoyin Mashiach davade ein mischaper b'asir se'ifa dechsev zeh carbon. So therefore, the Kohen Mashiach is not going to be able to bring an oil of yared at all. Okay, elaviyata dechsev the pasuk says v'hay ki yashem la'achas me'elo hachanam dechol hamischay b'achas mischay b'kulon v'shem mischay b'achas ein mischay b'kulon. So Lama Tanan Rabbi Kiva he says that nasi is chayev chus mishmi is koil. He says clearly that you are chayiv, but how can you possibly say that? So how do we understand this? So Abaye Rabbi they went to value me'achas mashma. So where it says me'achas, that's mashma to exclude. Mashmalei la'achas lo mashmalei. So mashma me'achas the mashmalei that it comes to exclude. The kasri rachman lo b'sayif gabi asir sa'efa, because it's written at the end by the ser sa'efa. Remember the whole. The Machai Basir Saif Machai Bekulan. These are the Mischai Beachas Afal Pi Shein Mischai Bekulan, this Schai Lahai Meachas Me'ela Bedolos Inami Bas Biashirus. Okay. All right. Before we get to the next Mishnah, let us continue with question 2 again. So, Nasi Shinitztara Ma Nifshat Biadenu. So, again, we answered that already. Nifshat the Patik of the Patim Mishum Deloy Boy de Anius Hachanami when it comes to Saras. TA7. Nasi Shinitztara Im Dinu Kanasi L'Inyan Seir L'Inyan Carbon of Yored. So we end up saying that a Nasi Shinitztara, there is no din, he's pater from carbon of Yored, which is the same din as a Nasi. And the other part of the question is, if you're a Nasi who has Saras, he will bring a Kisva or Seira just like a Hedget. Okay. TB 8. Not an easy question here. Madinu shel koin Mashiach b'shmias koil bitis v'sayim. Okay, so this is kind of the Mishnah. So let's start off with Chesed Beis, and then we'll say it's Testament Aleph. So when it comes to a koin Mashiach, right? So what's the my shmias koil bitis v'sayim? 3 shitas. I wrote Chayv l'koil, Poter b'koil, Rach Chayv b'vitos v'sayim. Okay, fine. So that again would presumably be from a lot of it is from that Mishnah, which is TB8, and also a little bit on the next dot. Okay, all right. Let's see the next Mishnah. Says the Masnisin, Kol ha-mitzvah is shebatayra shechayv v'nozim l'karis v'ashkos l'chatos. So anytime again, which we've established, when it comes to Param Dover Shel Tzibor, it has to be that the Mazid was Yubichayv Karis. So too, when it comes to a Yochid who does this, he just individually does a sin. Let's see, it was Machal Shabbos B'Shaygeg. So what does he have to bring as a carbon? V'yal Shkagosam Chatos HaYochid maybe Kispo Seira. He can bring a she-lamb or a she-goat. Those are the choices. However, Vahanasi, which we'll translate again as like the king, Seir, he has to bring a he-goat. Umashiach, who based in Mavian Par. As we said, when it comes to the situation of the Kohen Gadol, or the Beis-Din who, again, made an erroneous psak, and people, the majority followed them, so then there's a par that's brought. Va'avodas kachavim, a person who b'shoigig worshipped idols, hayachid v'hanasim v'mashiach, for the most part, everyone, Mavian Seira. We say that you have to bring a female goat, and Ubeistin Par V'Sa'ir. When it comes to the Beis-Din who said that, oh yeah, you can worship idols, whatever, in the situation, so then the Chiv is not just a Par, but a Par V'Sa'ir. Par L'Oil V'Sa'ir L'Chatos. Ashim Toloi. What is the din, again, if a person, there's Chalev and Shuma and kosher, non-kosher fats, you didn't know which one, etc., you ate. So, Asham Toli Hayachid, Bahanasi Chayavin, they are obligated to bring a carbon. Mashiach based in Paturin, as we said before, the Kohen Gadol's potter from Asham Toli. Asham Vadai, when it comes to Asham Vadai, Hayachid, Bahanasi Mashiach Hayavin, who based in Paturin. There's no din of an Asham Vadai when it comes to the based in. Al Shmias HaKoil, Yalbitoi Svasayim, Yaltumas Mikdash Gadashav. So, as we said before, a person gives a false oath, claiming that he didn't know, but he did, or Biter Svasayim, or Hativ, or Tumas Mikdash Kadashav, entering into the Mikdash Tameh, or touching things through Tameh. So in that case, based in Paitrin, right? Since all these cases, as we saw already, is a case of Oya B'Yarid, it's not a Chatas Kavua, so there's no din, there's no Chi of Par in that case. Vayachid v'hanas and Mashiach hayavin, they're chayiv. El shein kohen gadol Mashiach chayiv. The kohen gadol's not going to be chayiv. Al tumas mikdash v'kedasha dever of Shimon. Umahin mavian karmel v'yard u'belezer omer hanasi maybe sa'ir. Says the Gemara. So Tana Shimon hayanoisin klal. So Shimon, who is his opinion, we're going to again see, says the following rule. Kol shahayachid ba'asham taloi, anytime you have a yachid who has to bring an asham taloi, hanasi kiyotzaboy. So we say that the Nasi also has to do so. That's what the Mishnah said. Asham Toloi Hayochid Vanasi Chayavin. Mashiach based in Paturin. B'chol Shehu B'Asham Vadai, everything with Asham Vadai, Nasi Mashiach Yis Behen, who based in Paturin. Shmias Go Bitu Savasai Tumas Mitzvah Kadasha based in Paturin, because again it's Ovi Yared. Nasi Mashiach Chayavin. Avashein HaNasi Chay B'Shmias HaKoyel. However, the king is not going to be chayiv in Shmias Koil, V'loi Mashiach B'Tumas Mitzvah Kadashav. Koshu B'Oyla V'Yoyred Nasi Kiyotzebo. Mashiach, who based in Paturin. Okay, so that's a very lengthy statement, but with this Hagufa Kasha we have a stira. We have a contradiction. At first you said Shein Mashiach Chay B'Tumas Mitzvah Kadashav. B'Tumas Mitzvah Kadashav Hu Potter. It's mashma that when it comes to the din of a Kohen Gadol, the Mashiach, that he's not going to be chayiv on the Tumas Mikdash Kedasha. However, it's mashma of b'shmias koyel v'tis susayim chayiv. It's only dafka when it comes to Tumas Mikdash Kedasha. It says that he would be potter. Mashma by shmias koyel v'tis susayim titakli be chayiv. Ema seifa kol shehu b'oyel v'yored nas b'yoytzebai. So when it comes to Yared and Nasi is the same. Mashiach who based in Paturin. Katani Mashiach based in Paturin. Ma based in Paturin Mikul from everything. Mashiach part of Mikul. So too when it comes to Kohen Gadol, he's part from everything. So it's a kasha, it's a stira. So as we continue in Testament Bays, it's kasha dadi. Again, we have this contradiction. Here Rashi points it out. Diktani. El she'ein Mashiach chayiv Tumas Mikdash Kedash. They're not chayiv when it comes to this, because again it's oil v'yared. Ha b'shmias koil b'tus osayim chayiv. So the question is, what's the din by shmias koil b'tus osayim? So Rav Huna bar Yeshua lo kasha kan b'dalois kan b'dali dalois. So one is dali dalos, you're very poor. Mashiach pater makul. In that situation, they're pater. All right. V'haydi ka'aymer Mashiach chayiv b'shmias koil. Uvitis Masayim can go in bedalos, beturin and bedayoina shedayin loba ledali dalos. So he's not the highest level of poverty, because at least you can bring birds. Okay. So we hit a Rabbi Yeshua Lukasha bedalos kan bedali dalos. Rav Shimon Savar lo Rabbi Kiva b'chada pulgam b'chada. So agrees with one, disagrees with the other. So what is that? He agrees with Rabbi Kiva, the Pater Mashiach Medali Dalis, that a Kohen Gadol is Pater from bringing the flour, right? Because the pasuk says Mezeh Karmen Al Rivanov. However, I argue with him on another matter. Bidalei she'enu Rabbi Kiva Pater le Nami Bidalais. The Ka'amri she'en Meschaper B'Asir Seifa en Meschaper B'Kulan. So essentially, not mischaper with flour, not mischaper at all. Rav Shimon badali dalos to the mischaper, how badalos v'ashiris mischaper. So it's only the lowest level is not mischaper of flour, but maybe of birds it is. Okay, fine. Let's look at question 4. Ma tirtzu haGemara. How did the Gemara answer? Al dekushia Rav Shimon detani reisha shmias hakovi tevasayim nasi Mashiach chayavin. The seifa kol shu b'oil v'yored. Mashiach based in Paturin. So which one is it? If it's an oil v'yared, these cases are oil v'yared. Shmias koil vitus osayim. So are you chayav or you pater? So how do you understand this? One says you're chayav, one says you're pater. So the ratio which says that you're chayav is only bedalis, like bring birds. The safe where you're pater is dali dalis, that you don't bring. You're not going to bring the flour offering. Okay. With regard to fine. So that's question 4. All right. El shein kohen gadol chayav v'chul. So Omer Achitzi, my time to Rav Shimon. So the pasuk says v'nichraso nefesh ahi metoich kahal. It says that they'll be cut off from among the nations. So mi shekarbanoi shavul kahal. That's only when your carbon is comparable to the tzibor. Yatzezeh, excluding the kohen gadol, shein karbanoi shavul koil. So therefore, since it's not shaveh, so that's the reason why Rav Shimon says his din. Let's go back to the Mishnah. So what was the words of Rav Shimon? Rav Shimon said that Hayachid and a Nasi Mashiach are chayev, El Shein Kohen Mashiach chayev al Tumas Mikdash Kedashav. Rav Shimon says that he's not going to be chayev the Kohen Gadol on Tumas Mikdash Kedashav. That's what he says. Why? Because Misha Karbanu Shavel Kahal Yotzezeh Shein Karbanu Shavel Kahal. Im Kein Nasi Nami in Karbanu Shavel Kahal. So Shava b'kapara Yom Kippurim. They actually have the same kapara the Nasi does regarding the chiyuv of the seirim. So Im Kein Kohanim Nami lo Shavel Kahal b'kapara Yom Kippurim. So Kohanim Shavel Kahal b'shar mitzvahs d'shana kula. That in fact they are similar to the kahal in other mitzvahs. So this is again unlike Rav Shimon. Mashiach Nami ha'shavel b'shar mitzvahs d'shana. El Amarava Emahachi Misha Chata Sai Shavel Yechidim Manihu Kahal. Okay. Rabbi Lezer Omer Hanasi maybe Seir B'chul. Omer Rabbi Yochanan Lo Omer Rabbi Lezer El B'tumas Mikdash Kedashav. Rav Shimon only said that a Nasi brings regarding this. Hoyel V'nemer Kares Boy. So therefore he says that B'kavua. Amar Papa Hachinam Nustar B'disang that Rabbi Lezer Al Kul Karmis on everything Michti Sir Nasi Par Mashiach B'Makam Yachid L'Chatas Koi Nisni Nami Mashiach maybe Par Mishmias Koyel B'Tis Osayim El B'Delo Katani. Why does it not say it? So Mashiach Shemamina Tumas Mikdash Kedashav Koi the Mashiach Potter. Amalei Rav Huna Bredi Rav Nasan Rav Papa Mamai. How do you know? Dilma Rabbi Lezer Akul Hunkoi Rav Mashiach Zavak Rabbi Kiba. Diamar Mashiach Potter V'Kulan Amalei Rabbi Kiba Mi Potter Lo Mapar V'Sul Midi. Okay. Rav Yochanan Amay Rabbi Lezer Shein maybe Asham. There's no Asham that's brought. Tani Kamid Rav Sheshas Asham Toli Ba Al Tumas Mikdash Kedashav. That you could bring an Asham Toli. Amalei Diar Muchmani. Who's that? So Rabbi Lezer he the Omer. Hoyel v'nemer b'karis kibakavua maisi. So Nasi Seir Aleha v'yayimir Rav Yochanan Meider Belezer Shein maybe Asham Toli Kasha. Okay, so let's look at question TA6. Actually, we'll stop there. Be'elu Gimel Devarim. No, that's TB6. TA6. Says Heich Mishkachs B'Shagi maybe Chatas Kavua v'Safik in maybe Asham Toli. All right, so B'Tumas Mikdash Nasi maybe Seir in maybe Asham Toli. Okay, so that's that. Hanul Chayir Kohen Mashiach. Hanul Chayir Kohen Mashiach. Hanul Chayir Kohen Mashiach. We're going to continue on the next parak in tomorrow's daf. Adkan.